These are the 6 biggest things you need to know before the NBA season officially tips off. Point 1. Golden State's sneaky revival. The first storyline is the Golden State Warriors, who might be a lot better than people realize. On paper, their roster looks almost identical to last season, with 2 notable changes: Al Horford in, Kevin Looney out. That's not seismic, but remember, this was already a really good team after they pulled off the mid-season move for Jimmy Butler. Once Butler joined Steph Curry and Draymond Green, Golden State went from average to terrifying. Before Butler, the team's net rating was just plus 0.7, with an offensive rating of 113.9 and a defensive rating of 113.2, barely above league average. After Butler arrived, those numbers exploded. A 9.6 net rating, offense climbing to 117.8, and defense tightening to 108.2 points allowed per 100 possessions. That's championship-level production. What Butler gave the Warriors was everything they'd been missing. A secondary creator who could score in isolation, a switchable defender, a smart playmaker, and, maybe most importantly, someone who lives at the free throw line. With Butler in the lineup, Golden State averaged nearly 26 free throw attempts per 100 possessions, 99th percentile league-wide. Without him, just 16.7, good for the 15th percentile. That's a massive swing that it wasn't only offense. Butler completely altered their defensive identity. Before, they were middle of the pack in forcing turnovers. With him, they were the best team in the league. He fits their system seamlessly. And when you look at the depth around that Steph Dre Butler trio, it's impressive. Brandon Podziemski, Moses Moody, Buddy Hield, Al Horford, Gary Payton II, DeAnthony Melton, and Jonathan Kuminga round out a rotation that feels deeper than it has in years. That here's the bottom line. If Butler stays locked in through the regular season, the Warriors can beat anyone on any given night. If he paces himself like he's been known to, Golden State might settle in the middle of the West. Maybe the play-in, maybe the 5 or 6 seed. But come playoff time, when you're staring across the floor at Steph Curry and Jimmy Butler together, that's one of the most intimidating duos in basketball. For that reason alone, the Warriors remain very real title contenders. Point 2. Oklahoma City's next leap. The second thing you need to know is that the Oklahoma City Thunder, fresh off a 68-win championship season, could actually get better. That might sound wild, but it's true. Last year's team wasn't fully healthy, and they're still ridiculously young. Natural growth alone makes them scarier. Chet Holmgren is the clearest example. He played only 32 regular season games because of a fractured hip, and even when he returned for the playoffs, he wasn't right. His mobility was limited. His shot looked stiff, and yet defensively, he was still a monster. Now, he's had a full off-season to recover. Expect a real offensive leap. Knocking down threes with confidence, cutting hard, putting the ball on the floor, and creating for himself and others. That's huge because as good as OKC's defense was, there were stretches in the playoffs where they struggled generating offense outside of Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. A fully unleashed Holmgren could change that completely. And he's not alone. Jalen Williams is primed for another jump. He played through a torn ligament in his hand last postseason, yet still delivered huge moments, at times even sliding to center when injuries thinned their front court. In the finals, when Indiana tried to trap SGA, OKC trusted Williams to run the offense, and he torched Aaron Nesmith. Add in smaller but meaningful steps from Cason Wallace, Aaron Wiggins, AJ Mitchell, and rookie Nikola Topic, and the Thunder's core naturally levels up. Combine that with better health, and suddenly 70 wins doesn't feel impossible. Last year was the window to catch OKC before they matured. Now they've got championship DNA. To beat them, you'll need nearly flawless basketball. Point 3. Jason Tatum's shock recovery. The third storyline is Jason Tatum's recovery, which might be ahead of schedule in a way nobody expected. Boston's season ended in heartbreak last spring. In the second round against the Knicks, they dropped the first 2 games, stole Game 3, and then disaster struck late in Game 4. With just over 3 minutes left, down by 7, Tatum lunged after a loose ball and tore his Achilles. For most stars, that's a lost season. But Tatum's case is unusual. The world's leading Achilles surgeon happens to be based in New York, and Tatum had the procedure within hours. No flights, no delays. Everything went as smoothly as possible. Fast forward 19 weeks, and instead of walking laps or light jogging like most players at this stage, Tatum is already running full court and getting up basketball reps. That's unheard of. So, could he play this year? If you're asking whether the Celtics are true contenders if he returns, the answer's probably no. Even with the East looking weak, they don't have enough around him. But if you're asking whether Tatum could be back before the playoffs, the answer is trending toward yes, that if he's scrimmaging by January, a March return is realistic. Ideally, Boston would want him practicing for at least a month before activating him. But Tatum's competitive fire makes it unlikely he sits the whole year if cleared. He's been hinting at a comeback since the surgery, and everything about his rehab suggests he's pushing for it. Even if the Celtics don't go on a deep run, the fact that their franchise star could return earlier than anyone thought changes everything about how we view Boston this year. For the Nuggets' new approach to the regular season, something feels different in Denver this year, and it goes beyond just the usual "we'll try harder" preseason soundbites. The Nuggets, defending champions only a short while ago and perennial contenders with Nikola Jokic at the helm, have always been known for their ability to flip the switch when it mattered. Coasting through the regular season, finishing near the top but not dominating, then suddenly locking in once the playoffs arrived was almost their identity. It worked, but it also created vulnerabilities. Now the word coming out of Denver's camp is that the mindset is shifting completely. This year, they don't just want to be good enough to coast into the postseason. They want to be a nightmare from opening night through the last game of April. Christian Braun, still technically a young role player, but increasingly a voice within the locker room, spoke openly about it on Media Day. He explained that the Nuggets have always had the bones of a solid defensive structure. Their schemes didn't change dramatically between the regular season and playoffs. The difference, according to Braun, was simply energy. The urgency. The way every possession mattered. When Denver plays with playoff intensity, their defense transforms from serviceable to suffocating. Braun and Aaron Gordon both said the goal this year is to bring that version of the Nuggets to all 82 games. Not to rely on Jokic outscoring everybody. Not to wait until April to start playing championship-caliber defense. The mission: finish the season as a top 10 defense and overwhelm teams in the regular season instead of just grinding through. That's a bold shift. But what makes it believable is how different the bench looks compared to last season. Everyone remembers how disastrous those minutes without Jokic on the floor could be. Opponents knew they could hang around or even build leads while the big man rested. Now, Denver seems to have an answer. Jonas Valanciunas was brought in specifically to stabilize those non-Jokic minutes. The idea is to run much of the offense through him, like a miniature version of the Jokic hub. He's not the same passer, obviously, but he's a bruising presence inside, a strong screener, and a capable distributor when stationed in the post. With him, the second unit has an identity rather than just chaos, and confidence in that bench is high. People around the team are talking about this group as potentially one of the best reserve units in the league. That's a wild turnaround considering they were one of the worst just a season ago. Equally important is what's happening behind the scenes. Last year ended in dysfunction. The front office imploded. Both the GM and the head coach were fired before the dust even settled. The vibes in the locker room were reportedly toxic. Entered David Adelman, now elevated to head coach. His job has been to steady the ship, but even he admitted one thing: leadership can't just come from a coach. It has to come from the stars. He name-dropped Jokic, Jamal Murray, Aaron Gordon, and Christian Braun as the ones responsible for keeping the group tight and focused. Even Jokic, famously stoic and often leading by example rather than words, has said he'll be more vocal this year. He noticed how strongly his teammates responded in those moments when he did speak up. Jamal Murray, meanwhile, is drawing attention at camp. He's earned a reputation as someone who cruises during the regular season before unleashing playoff Jamal. But reports are that he showed up in the best shape of his career and is competing hard every possession, every drill. If that carries over, his first All-Star nod could finally arrive, and Denver's ceiling only rises. Put it all together, and this is not the usual Nuggets team that floats through the first half of the season. This is a group determined to dominate from the jump. And if they play with playoff focus for 6 straight months, they might very well end up the undisputed best team in basketball. Point 5. The Rockets' point guard problem. The Houston Rockets were supposed to roll into this season ready to prove themselves as legitimate contenders. They'd built a deep, versatile roster with both veterans and youth, surrounding Jalen Green and Alperen Sengun with shooting, defense, and toughness. Fred VanVleet was the steady hand, the organizer, the veteran floor general tasked with keeping the chaos in check. And then came the gut punch, a torn ACL. Just like that, Houston lost their starting point guard, their offensive engine, the one player who gave them calm under pressure. The Rockets didn't even get one fully healthy game before everything changed. Now, the debate has split analysts and fans. Some still believe the Rockets have enough depth and talent to survive without VanVleet. Others argue that this injury effectively slams the championship window shut before it even opened. The case for optimism rests on depth. Houston's roster is long and full of players capable of handling the ball. Amen Thompson, Kevin Durant. Yes, playing more as a point forward in this context, Aaron Holiday, and even young Reed Shepherd can all share the duties. The plan, according to training camp whispers, is point guard by committee. But skeptics point out the glaring risk. What happens when elite defenses pick them up full court? VanVleet specialized in navigating that pressure, calmly walking the ball up, initiating pick and rolls, and keeping the offense in rhythm. Without him, do you trust a second-year Thompson or a still raw Shepherd to handle Drew Holiday, Derek White, or De'Aaron Fox, hounding them for 94 feet? That's where the worry lies. Amen Thompson has the physical tools and playmaking flashes, but he was thriving off the ball last year, cutting, defending, using his athleticism. Forcing him into a primary ball handler role could both expose the Rockets and risk stunting his development. Kevin Durant can create offense, but at this stage of his career, asking him to be the full-time initiator is a dangerous gamble. Aaron Holiday provides steadiness, but not much creativity. Reed Shepherd is the true wild card. Drafted 3rd overall a year ago, his rookie season barely got off the ground. Too small, too raw, too inexperienced. But in the G League and his limited NBA minutes, he flashed genuine shot-making and feel. The problem? This is not a low-stakes developmental year. Handing him the keys would mean putting championship aspirations on the shoulders of someone who hasn't yet proven he belongs in the league. Could a trade be the answer? Absolutely. The Rockets still have assets. Packaging young players and picks for a veteran guard is on the table. But that seems like a mid-season contingency if things are spiraling, not something they rush into. For now, the plan appears to be committee ball handling while slowly increasing Shepherd's role off the bench. What does this mean for Houston's title hopes? Honestly, it's a step back. VanVleet wasn't a superstar, but he was the glue. He organized possessions, knocked down open threes, played sturdy defense, and brought playoff experience. You don't just replace that with one player, especially when the alternatives are raw or inconsistent. The Rockets are still talented. They still have shooting, defense, length, and scoring. They'll win plenty of games. But when the postseason comes and possessions slow down, not having that calming presence might be the one fatal flaw that keeps them from breaking through point 6. The Bucks' new identity. Milwaukee might be the most fascinating team heading into this season because they look and feel completely different. Giannis Antetokounmpo has yet to even join training camp. He's been recovering from illness in Greece, but his absence has oddly been a blessing. It's forced the rest of the roster to sort out roles and styles without leaning on their superstar as a crutch. Doc Rivers and his staff are preaching one core idea. No matter who's on the floor, the Bucks need to play the same way. Last season, depending on which lineup checked in, Milwaukee looked like 2 or 3 different teams. The inconsistency killed them, most notably when Indiana blitzed them in the playoffs. This season, Doc wants pace, and more pace, an approach strongly reminiscent of last year's Indiana Pacers. Enter Miles Turner. Acquired to shore up the front line, Turner has already become a vocal leader in camp, stressing how they can weaponize pace while maintaining defensive integrity. Pairing him with Giannis in the front court gives Milwaukee one of the most imposing defensive tandems in the league. But it's on offense where Turner might unlock something new. Reports say the starting lineup will feature Kevin Porter Jr. at point guard, Gary Trent Jr. and A.J. Green on the wings, Giannis at power forward, and Turner at center. That group screams tempo. KPJ and Giannis showed instant chemistry whenever they shared the floor last year. Now Rivers is leaning into it, giving them the green light to run. Kyle Kuzma is another interesting subplot. Fans are divided on his fit. The front office sees him as a valuable four, but with Giannis entrenched in that spot, Kuzma will likely shift to a sixth-man role. That could actually be perfect, giving the bench scoring punch while maintaining spacing and pace. And then there's the shooting. Milwaukee finished first in the NBA in three-point percentage last year, but only 18th in attempts. A faster system naturally produces more threes, and that's exactly what this roster is built for. Surround Giannis with shooters, give KPJ space to operate, and suddenly the Bucks' offense looks dynamic again. Defensively, the transformation might be even more dramatic. Gone is the passive, reactive scheme that got shredded by Indiana in the playoffs. Instead, they're pushing full-court pressure, using guards like Cole Anthony and Ryan Rollins to hound opposing ball handlers. It's aggressive, it's disruptive, and with Giannis and Turner behind them, the risk is worth it. If executed, this could be their own version of basketball Moneyball, stealing possessions through turnovers and fatigue. The hype around this team is starting to build quietly. Former players like Jeff Teague are predicting 50 wins. Mark Stein has them as a top 4 seed in the East. And honestly, I think Milwaukee could end up even higher. Their blend of pace, shooting, and defensive length makes them one of the most intriguing new-look contenders in the league. Golden State is sneaky. Oklahoma City is terrifying. Boston might get Tatum back sooner than anyone thought. Denver is shifting gears. Houston is scrambling. Milwaukee is reinventing itself. 6 storylines, 6 reasons this NBA season might be one of the most unpredictable and entertaining we've had in years.